It's a positive film. It has heroes and villains, and that it essentially is a fun movie to watch. It's been a long time since people have been able to go to the movies and see a sort of straightforward, wholesome, fun adventure.
Well, it's a fantasy. It's not science fiction so much as it is space fantasy. And it's about people. It's finally about people and not finally about science.
The story, when you actually put it into words, is only so much nonsense to hang a great visual experience onto. It's the stuff that fairy tales are made of.
It's sort of boiling down religion into a very basic concept. The fact that there is some deity or some power or some force that sort of controls our destiny works for good and also works for evil.
Marvellous, healthy innocence. Great pace, wonderful to look at, full of guts, nothing unpleasant. I mean, people go bang bang and people fall over and are dead, but, no horrors. A sort of wonderful freshness about it, kind of like a wonderful fresh air.
It's got whatever you want it to be. It's pure entertainment. It's like a roller coaster ride, and it can be interpreted as long as you enjoy it, which is the intention.
Hello, welcome back to Generation Skywalker. This is the new edition of Those Old Fossils. And what old fossils are with me? Well, the oldest of the lot is still in Afghanistan, but he is still here with us. Welcome, Jez.
Good evening, Stu. Good evening, lads. Good evening, everyone.
Are you keeping well, my friend? You still happy? Chipper?
Yeah, I am. No, things are good. I'm all right. I've got just over about 50 days before I can come home, so I'm counting the days, but I'm doing all right, and I'm surrounded with Star Wars goodness, so I'm okay.
That's nice. You've been treating yourself a little bit, haven't you? I know we don't really do the.
Well, a few things.
But you're going a bit mad, yeah.
I'm well into my jigsaws. I've got myself Waddingtoned up and Kenner jigsawed up. And they're quite tricky, actually. Anyway,
I know, 20 pieces, aren't they?
Maybe. Cheers, mate.
Also here, as always, is Mark Daniels. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Stu. Good evening, lads. How's everybody doing?
We're all good, mate. We're all good. Yeah, I know you've been extremely busy. Apart from that, are you all good?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I am, mate. Yeah.
We also have our bearded beauty. It's Craig Spivey. Good evening, Craig.
Good evening. Hello, everybody.
Oh, you've gone echoey. Like you've come on.
I've got my fancy mic on. Do I need to turn it down?
A little bit. You've sound like you've come out on stage at a concert.
Good evening,
like, yes.
Wembley. That's that. Is that?
And finally, making up the numbers as we, I think he was only ninth reserve, but we've got Simone here. Good evening, Si.
I'm here for my looks and my charm, Stuart.
You have lots of both, mate. I'm sure.
How you doing, mate?
I'm all good, mate. All good. Nice to chat to you lots. It feels ages since we've had a little get together, but since we last spoke, it's been the 40th anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back. Did anyone watch it on the day?
No.
Oh.
I watched it out here 2 days later with my crew.
Your crew, not your friends.
Yeah, my crew, who are also my friends. So that was great to watch it on a relatively big screen.
Does anyone else call their teddy bears their crew?
What a lovely mental picture.
I watched Attack of the Clones in bed this morning. What I was thinking. So 40th anniversary, boys. Did any of you see Empire in the cinema? I know this is a vintage show about toys, but just want to see if there's any early memories of the movie.
I did.
Did you?
Yeah, I did see it in the cinema. I was 9 years old. I don't have any lasting memories of the event. I know it would have been Doncaster Gaumont, because that's where I went to see Star Wars. So my dad would have taken me back there. I remember more feeling how the film left me rather than any of the circumstances around it. And as a 9-year-old, I did not believe Vader for 1 minute. I didn't trust Lando just because he got a little bit strangled. Didn't see that change of heart as being anything genuine. And I was mortified that Han Solo was turned to stone, like proper gutted and upset.
Really good experience for you then.
Traumatized.
Don't trust anybody.
But it was my favourite era of my kind of early Star Wars life. You know, it was being 9. It was the most structured play I had with my toys. You know, I was recreating scenes rather than just throwing things around the garden. You know? So it was a really good time.
Did anyone else see it?
Yeah, I didn't see it at the cinema, but I did see it in the hospital in 1984. I had a very, very bad accident when I was 11 years old. And when I was on the children's ward, I was in hospital for a long time, and sort of over Christmas as well. And each one of the children, every sort of Saturday, had a choice of a video. And my choice was The Empire Strikes Back, which I think had only just come out on video then. And or somebody had managed to get a copy of it on video. Yeah, that was the first time I watched it, and I watched it, and I was almost completely in plaster cast from top to bottom, and watching it for the first time. And remember thinking towards the end of the film, this was my overriding memory, was thinking, how are they going to get Han Solo back? It's almost, surely it must be the end of the film soon. And when they rolled the credits at the end, I was in absolute. I was in a state.
Well, you were if you're in a full body cast, yeah.
Well, yeah, well, pretty much, yeah. Both legs, arms, yeah, head.
Knowing I know this has got nothing to do with what we're talking about, but knowing that you're fine now, is that what happened to your face, mate?
Yeah, it was actually, mate. Yeah, and a few more besides after that as well, mate. I have to say, but yeah, that was the first time I remember. It's always lodged in my head, that memory.
How old were you?
I was 11.
So you were 11, so you hadn't been to the cinema to see Return of the Jedi.
No, I had seen Return of the Jedi before I saw Empire Strikes Back. So I saw Return of the Jedi in 1983. Star Wars had been on TV sort of several times before that. My dad, one of the only sort of memories of my dad doing anything as we were kids was taking me to see Return of the Jedi. And I'd not seen Empire Strikes Back up until the year later.
Wow, so yeah, you watched them all out of sync. Jez, you must have been about 15?
Very good. Cheers. Thanks, mate. I didn't get to see Empire in the cinema, and very much like Mark, actually, that Jedi is really weird back then, because obviously Jedi came out in 83 and Empire Strikes Back didn't come out on video rental until after that. So yeah, we all pretty much saw them out of sync, and that's why stuff like the read along cassettes and everything were just so important, because you couldn't watch them just like that. So yeah, I remember Dad bringing me back the rental from the shop, and I think I watched it about 3 times on the trot. Just couldn't wait every day when he was getting back from work. If you got the rental, and finally he got it. So yeah, VHS sometime in 1984 or early 85. I think it was late 84.
There you go, listeners. Jez was as irritating as a child as he was an adult. You got the rental, Dad. You got the rental. Bet you're an absolute treasure. Yeah.
Dear.
Deary me. Now, Si, you're a little bit younger. You're nearer my age than the rest of them.
That's right, mate. Yes, I am.
So when did you first encounter ESP?
I can only imagine it was when it came on at Christmas on TV, and that must have been quite late, 87, 88, the time it hit the TV. I don't know. I again remember how it made me feel, and I remember AT-ATs. That was my takeaway, and that was it. I saw Jedi at the cinema. I remember seeing Jedi, but Empire, I couldn't tell you, honestly, when I first saw it. I can only assume it was, as I say, when they screened it on, no doubt, ITV at Christmas or something.
Lads, I asked you all to identify one ESB vintage item in your collection that means the most to you, that the last piece you'd get rid of if you were having to get rid of them. So I have no idea what you're all going to come out with, whether it's going to be an oddball item or whether it'll be a toy. Craig, what is your favourite? Now you've got a big collection there. What's your favourite ESB item?
My favourite thing. Well, we're getting better at this. I've compared notes with my colleagues, but we're not going to repeat the same item. So Mark's going to do what I probably would have chosen. But a good reserve, a good stand-in for that is foam bath and shampoo set made by the very generically named Consumer Products Limited. And I just love it as a piece. It's a really nice piece of art, piece of packaging. It's as the name suggests, it's a little bottle of bubble bath and a little bottle of shampoo. And the art surrounding it, it's in a window box, a die-cut window box, and it's got a bit of a montage of characters from Empire. But the key scene is the Falcon cockpit where they're escaping the space slug, and the lighting on it is really quite dramatic. When the lights went down, they just got the light. They're being lit by the cockpit. And everybody looks super concerned for this fun bit of bath time joy. So it's a little incongruous, but I love it. It's great. Everyone's represented. You've got on the back the Probot and the Tauntaun. But what's interesting about it is you've got a riff on the Macquarie art of Vader and Luke fighting the end lightsaber battle, and Luke's in his X-wing gear. So it's quirky, It's just right in my wheelhouse. So I picked that as my favourite thing.
Beautiful. Anyone who wants to see what we're talking about, I'm sure there'll be a visual episode of this coming out pretty shortly after the podcast.
Watch this.
If I know Craig. Yeah. Mark, then. So something that Craig was going to choose as well, and I think I know what you're going to go with.
Yeah, he pretty much beat me to it, actually. He said, are you going to choose this? Because if you choose this, I've got to choose another item. And I said, yeah, it is my favourite item. And it is the Empire Strikes Back Trebor Tubar display box, which I acquired maybe a couple of years ago after trying to find one for many, many years. And it is just a masterclass in design. I absolutely love it. And bear in mind, this would have been created in the days way before Photoshop. The designer and the art worker, just absolute master craftsmen, because if you wouldn't have believed this had been done by Photoshop, you wouldn't have believed it at all. The photos kind of melt into one another almost seamlessly. It's really, really well done. You've got everybody from Darth Vader and Boba Fett on there, Stormtrooper, Leia, Chewie, Luke and Yoda, and just a real sort of array of very, very strange, unusual Empire photography. It's great, and with a massive 3p graphic on the front of the box makes it uniquely British, which again is something that I absolutely love.
I must admit, actually, as far as display, I like a display box, but I think it's one of the nicest display boxes out of every display box going. It is a stunning piece.
It really is, and it's got that really cool Empire logo on a slant. It's great. I love it.
Yeah,
it's a standout on any shelf, isn't it? I think the colour helps. That Bespin orange and that glow and the smoke. It's brilliant.
It is.
Yeah, good choices so far. Simon.
I'm gonna let the side down and go for a production toy. The Probot and Turret playset. My Panasonic Probot and Turret playset. I love that because it's a cool little playset. The turret was fantastic and is, for once in the world of Star Wars, about the right scale. So I love that. Probot, perhaps a little bit big, but it is a cool thing as well. And this one in particular, I bought it purely because it's got a Toy and Hobby price sticker on it, which is, in my head, that was my nirvana as a child. Living in North Wales, there really weren't that many decent toy shops about. So the nearest one was Toy and Hobby in Chester, and I have some really good early memories of going toy shopping there. So I like that. It's a quirky little playset. Impossible, as Mark will tell you, to find in even half decent condition because the box is so big and so thin. But yeah, I love it. Good fun.
I think that's a great choice, mate. I said you shouldn't say, I've gone for a toy, because they're so vital, and it is a great playset. And of course, we have been giving the Probot a lot of love, I think, since Generation Skywalker began, especially over on the modern roundtable. We've all been a little bit in love with it recently, but good choice. Jez.
Mate, I've got it in my hand, and it is.
What about your ESB
Empire Strikes Back? Oh, it's just I set them up, and you knock them out of the park. It's my Empire Strikes Back Black Falcon pillowcase. I love this because there are so many different things. However, this is easy for me to travel with, because I have to travel around with work. You sent this to me the last time I was in Afghanistan as a surprise gift, and I loved putting it on my pillow when I was out there. And when I came back and I flew back this time, I was like, I'm going to take my pillowcase, and what's more, I'm going to take my Jedi duvet cover as well. So, I mean, it's great. It's dual-sided, so it's got the logo on one side. It's got Darth Vader there with his yellow lightsaber. Boba Fett with really, really interesting. In mind that this was made in 1979, so this was produced. So actually, the stamp on it, 1979, 20th Century Fox, Black Falcon Limited, came out before the film was released. But so Fett's on there with a weapon system which he definitely didn't have, and Star Destroyer, going through space. You've got a little cannon there, quite clearly a Hoth scene, and flip it over, and I've got 3PO and R2D2, Leia and Han, Chewbacca, Luke on a Tauntaun, and a Millennium Falcon. So 2 different sides depending on what mood you're in. And I love it because I could just take it with me, and Star Wars can be omnipresent.
What side do you have up if it's been a really, really long day?
Oh, good question. What do you know? Well, it's been quite a long few days, so I think I'm going to go friendly 3PO and R2. The other side's a little bit too aggressive, and I want to get in my zen zone.
What about if you're feeling a bit angry?
Oh, right. Well, if I'm feeling a bit angry, I'll go for Vader and Fett. And if I'm so angry, what I'll probably do is I'll probably find a fridge and put it in, because it's always nicer, isn't it, when you put your head down on a cold pillow, and you can sometimes flip the pillow, can't you, because it's colder when it's been on the other side. Anyone else do that, or is that just me?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Flip your pillow.
Flip your pillow. Well, one last one then, Jez. What about if you're feeling a bit amorous? Is it just like cuddled up, straddled?
Oh, dear me. We're just losing listeners at a regular rapid rate. It's the next question, please. You've embarrassed me, Stuart.
Do you choose, Stu?
What would I choose? That's a good. Well, to be fair, anyone that's really ever listened to Vintage Rebellion will know what I will choose. I have always loved it, and I love it more because do you know when you go for a rough patch, you're really busy. And my missus had just contacted Grant and said, "Look, I want to get Stuart a present." And one day I came home and the Signa teapot was sitting at home with the Luke Hoth on Tauntaun, and I wanted it for ages. And Grant had helped her get it across from America, and it just came home one day and it was and I love that piece. Out of all my Sigma, it's still my favourite. So I would definitely go with that. And it's got a Tauntaun, which you can't go wrong, can you?
Is it Tauntaun or is it Tauntaun?
Oh, there's a question.
I always thought it was Tauntaun.
Well, what does it say in the film? Because in the film they use it. They say your Tauntaun will freeze before you reach the first marker or whatever.
I had a mate that used to call it a town.
I take it you kick them to the curb.
I did a bit of a American history X on him and made him bite the curb.
That's what I heard. I heard you called him out on it and ended up in a body cast.
Yeah, when I was 11.
I think I might need to lend Mark my pillow.
Yeah. Not the aggressive side, though.
I call it a Tauntaun. What's everyone else? What do you call it, Mark? A town?
No.
What about the rest of you?
I call it a Tauntaun. It's a Tauntaun.
Yeah.
But I had a mate who called it a town. He actually called it a town. And this is the same mate, get this. He actually had the audacity to turn round to me and say that he had a vinyl Cape Jower, but it was missing the cape.
I've got one of those.
So, well, it's not a vinyl Cape Jower then, is it?
Yeah, it is. Just missing the cape, mate.
Well done, Chewbacca. Parents, we've been ordered by the Rebel High Command to show you all the excitement and adventure of Star Wars action figures. Chewbacca, a new take-apart C-3PO. Here's new R2D2 with sensor scope. 47 action figures in all, including new AT-AT Commander and new Cloud Car pilot. Remember, parents, there's only one Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back collection from Kenner.
Let's move over to topic one. We touched last month on C&T auctions, and they'd done a big online auction which had gone very, very well, and we discussed whether the prices seemed high. Well, since then, Vectis have gone and done an auction. Mark, I'm going to come over to you first. What do you think about the auction and the prices? Where do you think they sat?
amazed, really. I know we sort of touched on the fact that C&T, we felt the general consensus was that C&T auctions were going to be like a sort of test to see how the market was standing in their current situation with the lockdown and whatever. Yeah, and it completely bucked the trend. Yeah, prices went through the roof. Same with Vectis. This was very much right, okay, let's knuckle down and see what happens here. Yeah, some of the prices being realised were just incredible, absolutely incredible. And this gets brought up every single time. People sort of moan about the auction houses. Some people commenting that the auction houses were responsible for the prices. That is and never will be the case. It is the collectors and the dealers that are driving the market, whatever situation we seem to be in. It's those people that are driving the market. Those are the people that are dictating the prices when it comes to these auctions. And I don't know if anybody's watching eBay recently, specifically over the lockdown. There is a real short supply of decent vintage merchandise for sale, and I'm watching it daily, sometimes hourly, just to see what's out there. And there is a real short supply. So when collections like this come up for sale at auction houses like Vectis and C&T and Aston's and all the rest of them, there is a lot of attention sort of focused on those auctions now, and that was very visible and very clear to see at the last Vectis auction. The mock prices, even some of the more sort of random pieces, were going for way beyond what they would normally fetch. I would sort of say. I won one piece and I paid through the nose for it, or rather one lot and I paid through the nose for it. But it was a piece, an items that I really wanted. Mr. Sunak had very graciously given me a bit of a grant over the recent situation, so I had a bit of spare cash. And I dare say that was true of quite a few people. So interesting.
Nice. Anyone think different on the prices, that they were what they were, kind of like in line?
There was one thing which I thought, okay, that's not gone up much. We mainly talk about the carded figures because the majority of the time there are carded figures. But there was the prototype Luke X-Wing coin, which they haven't produced many of those at all. I believe maybe there was 50 or so. I could be wildly out there, but this was the original Power of the Force pre-production. It was smaller than the large one which you now get on the Power of the Force cards rather. And they've been holding their price now for probably about 4 or 5 years. So they typically go for 120 up to about 170. And let me just see, I took a little screenshot of that one, and it went for 150 plus fees. Now there are a couple of different types of these coins. There's a couple of different types of the Yoda on the coin, but it's a much smaller coin. But with regards to Star Wars prototypes, you'd think that this was becoming more and more popular, and everyone would think, oh, at least let me get some form of vintage prototype in my collection. But they just don't seem to be increasing in price like carded figures do.
There were 200 of them, Jez.
200, was it? Right, okay. Yeah, I mean, big scheme of things, that's not a lot, is it? You see how much the proofs have gone up. Now I know that the proofs, there were less numbers, particularly revenge ones. It shot up over the last couple of years, but these have definitely been stable. Maybe just people aren't interested, I don't know, but I would have thought these would have gone up in line with everything else.
Yeah, because coins generally have, haven't they? I turned down the opportunity to buy the Creatures coin with Greedo on it for just a few hundred in the very early days of collecting Greedo. And the last one I saw was a couple of grand. So that coin has gone through the roof. It's priced me right out because those coins are so thin. I can't see myself spending that on it. But yeah, the one area which I did think on the Vectis, because I watched the auction, was some of the incomplete ships. Now, so lot 6230, so it's an AT-AT and a couple of Scout Walkers, and then that funny Death Star fold-out thing. I think it's Micro Machines. They go for about £1. I've had one for ages, can never shift it. So that's all that's in there. But even the write-up, fair to good, incomplete. Okay, you can see the machine guns are missing. I think 2 of the Scout Walkers, the Top Gun's missing. Price that got was £120. That's before fees. So with a bit of shipping, you're talking about 150 quid for that lot. And that just seems ludicrous to me. Absolutely ludicrous. And that wasn't the only one of those loose ships. There were several lots like that when it came to those. I mean, if I just go back a page, there's another one on there. Yeah, look, an incomplete Millennium Falcon. I mean, it hasn't even got, the top panel is in the box, but there's nothing inside it. An incomplete Rebel transport and an incomplete troop transport. And I think there's a busted up land speeder in that, 130 quid. I mean, who is buying them? Because you're never seeing your money back on that if you're a dealer.
Absolutely not. It can't be dealers that are buying those, because you go to any toy fair, any collector event, you will find those under the table of every other dealer that's there, and you will get them for 10, 20, 30 quid. No problem whatsoever. So I just fail to understand what the reason is behind the prices on those particular items.
I didn't get it because there was several lots like it as well. You're not just talking 1 or 2. There was a good 7, 8 lots like that, and they all went over 100 quid. And I was just sitting there thinking, I must be missing something, but even the descriptions, all of them were fair to good. Even that is stating to me that that's poor condition on those as well.
Stu, I wonder if they're like, we went to that 80s retro restaurant in Oxford, Atomic Pizza or something like that, and so it was done out with all old videos, and they had loads of little arcade things and all bits of nostalgia. And they say, for example, they'd have an AT-AT somewhere up on a shelf, and everyone would be like, "Oh, awesome, AT-AT," and it wouldn't matter that the chin guns were missing. It wouldn't matter that the battery bay was missing. You were there having a meal out, and there'd be an AT-AT, and it would just add to the sort of cool, just retro experience of it. So maybe stuff like this is getting purchased by people who are setting up shops or setting up something and just want a bit of a mixture of ships and don't necessarily care if it's complete, because it's the visual effect on a shelf or something like that. I mean, because that shop had some great things. They weren't complete, but it was just cool from our point of view, because we were in there and we were in a shop which was a homage to what we love.
There could be that, although I always feel that if somebody is buying from Vectis or C&T or whoever it may be, they are seeking out specific things. They are not your casual sort of buyer. These are people that have done their homework and who know what they are buying, who know what they are looking for. This isn't really, I mean, you can get that on eBay at any day of the week. So for those lots to realise those sorts of prices, I would just love to find out why those lots, and let's be honest, they were junk lots. They should have been 30, 40, 50 quid, if that, any other normal day. So, yeah, very, very surprised.
What about the Palatoy prices, Si? I mean, you saw the Palatoy cards that were for sale there, I think firsthand. There were some nice pieces there, and they went pretty high. But let's just take Rich, for example. There was 2 R5 D4 40, I think they were 45Bs, but I might be wrong on that. 2 back-to-back. He bought the first one, and the second one went for twice the cost.
Yeah, I saw these in, I think it was about September or October last year. Went up to see James Stretton and had a look through, had a chat, and had a look. For a start, the R5s were 2 45A backs, and there was nothing to choose between them. They had different defects, but they were about the same grade. So, yeah, you can't really say why that was the case. Why one doubled the price of the other. It just happens in auctions, and we see it quite often, in fairness. Sometimes the first one, usually the first one is cheaper if you look all through. So they had a load of those ESB signs from the Frank Beach shop, the Palatoy ESB signs, and they put those in 3 or 4 auctions, and every single time without fail the first one through went for 30 or 40 quid less than all the other ones. It happens. Everyone sits on their hands, then they go think, oh wow, that was cheap, I can afford one of those, I'm going to have one of those, and then they start bidding. That could be it, who knows. In terms of the Palatoy prices, because it was almost entirely Palatoy stuff or General Mills, I found it utterly sickening, to be honest. I really did. So much so that I started chatting to Nick Dykes, who does valuations and a lot of work for Vectis, halfway through, and I said, mate, when's the next sale? He said, June. If you can get me the stuff tomorrow, I can put it in for you. And I got in the car and I drove 270 miles to Leeds. with a car full of mocks. I was absolutely, I honestly, I felt sick. As you know, I've been putting together a 45B run. That's the Palatoy Empire Strikes Back card without any logos on it, so no Palatoy logo on it or anything like that. And I've been putting that together for the last 4 or 5 years, and I've managed to get to a grand total of 16 cards in that time. They're really hard to find because they're rarely labelled correctly as Palatoy 45Bs, or indeed even as Palatoys. So they're really tough to find. They do include some of the rarest cards out there, where there are single examples known to exist. And there were a few in this sale, along with GM 45s, General Mills 45s, which is the German issue, which look the same from the front. Just to give you an idea, when I got back in collecting in 2015, the first figure I bought was a Hoth Stormtrooper on Palatoy 45B. They come up quite rarely because Toy Tony had about 800, 700 card backs. So there's a lot of Toy Tonys out there. There's very few real Palatoys out there. And when I got back into collecting, I bought one off Star Wars Forum UK for £290. And I knew I'd overpaid. And I was saying to Gary Smith, who is, as you know, the Palatoy collector, a couple of days before this sale, jokingly, I overpaid for it back then. And to be honest with you, I'd still be overpaying if I paid 290 quid for it today. An ungraded one in that sale sold for £1,300 plus fees. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. You had other really standard 45Bs going for 600-700 quid.
Do you think the Hoth Stormy, people have gone crazy on that because they've got a bit of a fallback if it turned out to be a Tony, that if they had doubts over it, I bought it from an auction house?
None whatsoever. You've got pretty much no comeback with auction houses. You drill down into, and this isn't this. I'm not having a go at Vectis here. Vectis are absolutely brilliant at having stuff back. I know I've had stuff damaged in the post and they've been good as gold over it. But let's talk about that Harbert Jawa for a moment. That was, in theory, someone said it was a marriage and they disputed that. I don't think that ever got returned, did it? So when it comes to subjective things like that, you are not going to get a return from an auction house. So there is no comeback on that. Yeah, the whole story of Palatoy, shop find, etc. But there were still people on the internet saying, oh yeah, there's some Toy Tonys in there. Usually, bless them, the Americans, and identifying all the non-Toy Tony cards. But the point is, there's no comeback. The story, yeah, possibly helped a little bit. Did it help by £1,000? No, of course not. Absolutely not. And what's happened is you've got a couple of guys who have got access to an awful lot of funds, have now started moving into the Palatoy 45B area. So they've done up to the 45As. They've hit a wall. They're now moving on to 45Bs. And all of a sudden, the prices go absolutely crazy. So I thought, I can't collect those anymore. I can't collect anything looking at the prices. We were talking yellow bubbled Weequay on a Palatoy 65 back. You don't need to be an expert on mocks to know that's a 50 quid card maximum. At any Echo, at any bloody toy fair you go to, you will find a yellow bubbled Palatoy 65 back Weequay, and it will cost you 50, maybe 60 quid. £200 plus fees. What was it? Squid Heads 65 back, £170 plus fees. That's another 45, 50 quid card there. The prices were insane, absolutely insane. And that's not Vex's fault. That's people who press bid. So yeah. The upshot of it was I ended up bringing all the Tri logos home because Nick managed to do a deal with one of his clients, and he bought all my 45Bs off me. And yeah, so I'm sitting pretty, but I'm not spending money on mocks because the prices at the moment are bonkers. What was really interesting about the sale, other than the stupid prices, is we are only seeing these prices achieved at auction, in auction houses. They're not being achieved on Facebook. They're not being achieved on eBay. It appears to be a really bizarre phenomenon that, and maybe it's the whole live auction thing. It's right there. It's right now. This thing gets 30 seconds of airtime and then it's gone again. If you've got 7 days to think about it on eBay, you can hum, you can ha, you can end up missing it. But if you're there, sat at the auction, pressing the button, bored, meant to be at work, who knows what the reasoning is. But these prices are not being replicated across online. They are at the auction houses. We've seen it at C&T and we've seen it at Vectis.
And anyone else got anything on Vectis?
Not on Vectis. I didn't follow it that closely on the day, although I have read sort of some of the commentary afterwards, which is always fascinating. But there was there was a Eubanks auction of movie posters last week as well. And it just happened to pop up while I was working on the computer. So I was following that because they had quite a few Star Wars posters in there. Well, they had a Chantrell quad without the Oscars. That was down as an estimate between 8 and 1,200 quid, went for 1,300, just a little bit over the estimate. Some damage on it, yeah, very presentable. But then there was one with the Oscars, which obviously goes for less. That was only down as an estimate between 3 and 500. That went for 950, so quite a bit more. But the one I was after, just as a cheeky little bid, was they had a Star Crash poster, which again was by Tom Chantrell, and that was only down as an estimate between 30 and 40 quid. And for a little kind of kitschy Star Wars wannabe quad, I was quite up for that. It went for 120. And there was a lot of that throughout the auction, really. These little minor films that were no big cultural stakes, but they were nice posters. And people were spending on those. And there were a lot of that kind of pitched at that kind of figure, 30, 40 quid. They were all going over 100, which I thought was quite interesting. There was a really ratty Revenge of the Jedi Advance one sheet from the States. Again, it was down for about 400 to 600 quid, which is probably due to the condition of it. But that went for 1,800. So interesting to watch this stuff and just monitor it through the system, I think.
Yeah, price is still sky high there as well then.
Did you see the Revenge stickers go through the day before, Craig?
I didn't know.
That was interesting. That was from, I can't remember what she was, Wendy someone or other, somehow involved with the production. 2 sheets, and the estimate was 80 to 120. And it was on the back of something else. I can't remember what the actual item for sale was catalogued as, but it said also uncut sheet of Revenge stickers. And it was the Yoda head, Revenge of the Jedi. The estimate was 80 to 120. I think they went for 850.
I found them quite badly listed, some of them, because they were big lots, but there was only like 1 or 2 photographs. There's a lot of stuff you're not seeing. There were big lots of posters going through.
Yeah, some interesting points made, and be interesting to see the next auction.
Echo Base, I've got something. Not much, but it could be a life form. Commander Skywalker, do you copy? This is Rogue 2. This is Rogue 2. Captain Solo, do you copy? Commander Skywalker, do you copy? This is Rogue 2.
Good morning. Nice of you guys to drop by.
Echo Base, this is Rogue 2. I found them. Repeat, I found them.
Right, so moving on to topic 2, and something else that's kind of taken off over since we last recorded, and that is the new Deal or No Deal Facebook group. I think the admin on it are the people that used to run the raffles site. I know, which was very divisive about whether people were agreed with that. But the Deal or No Deal group is a bit different, and we have seen some amazing items on there. So let's get one of you to describe what Deal or No Deal is. Si, I come over to you. Can you explain the Deal or No Deal setup?
Very simple concept. You list an item and you say deal or no deal. List your terms, so shipping, fees, etc., and away you go. And you just wait for offers, basically. It's considered good practice to decline offers that you don't want, rather than just let people just keep on sort of bumping up offers. But that essentially is it. You don't have to sell, and you choose the offer, and there's no close on it. You just decide when to stop.
Yeah, so interesting. So, but let's be clear on it. It has caused some controversy, and some people are slamming it, saying it is just a way for the seller to make more money, earn more than what they're actually worth. So I just wanted to, first of all, just get our opinions on it and what we think, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. What I will say with that group is there has been no end of pre-production items, prototype items, even production pieces, which you wouldn't see come onto a market. You wouldn't have the opportunity. The kind of pieces that are often just sold between it's who you know kind of situation, where there has been the opportunity to buy some of these more obscure pieces for people who do have the funds to be able to do that. So what is people's thoughts on the format? Craig, what are your thoughts on that, on the format as a...
Oh, I'm a bit late to the party. I only joined because you do the show notes, so I've been on it for about 3 hours, but I haven't to flick through. And I agree. Yeah, there's some stuff on that I've never seen. So as a sort of little online museum, pop culture memorabilia, it's I got very lost in it very quickly, and I could see it being quite a draw away from other Facebook groups just by the sheer virtue of what's on there. I've not used it, obviously. I think it's a very public way of dealing with something. I don't think I would. It obviously depends on what items came up, and if it's something I was desperate for, a handful of Grail pieces, I'd be probably in there like a shot. But it's probably one of the things I would watch from a distance and observe for a while before I kind of joined in. I think I'd be quite reluctant to be one of the first people to go, I'll give you this, for fear of my peers looking over my shoulder going, well, he's overpaying for that. Or on the flip side, how rude of him to put in such a low ball offer. So I don't know. I think I'd need to get my head around it before I kind of joined in.
Yeah, to be honest, I've bought a couple of smaller bits off it in the last week.
How did that work for you?
Well, the problem is, the problem I find is when you don't really know what something's worth, you can't. Someone was going, so let's just make this clear before we carry on. So Jabba's Court have also introduced the sell-in term, the sell-in format since this group started, as has the IC. And the IC even went and started up a modern page for the same sort of sales. So it's spread quite quickly. But someone on one of there's been some discussions on it, but someone was like, people need to do their research before they put an offer in. Well, a lot of that stuff you can't go and research. You can't go and do an eBay search because it's not on there. So it's knowing what something's worth. So I suppose you have to I kind of sat back and waited for someone else to make an offer. But there's always some chap that will put a $5 bid in straight away. And you're like sitting there thinking, well, that's not right. Yeah. So in the end, I just kind of like looked at it and thought, well, what am I willing to pay for it? What would I think's a fair price? So, and if I'm way off, you're way off. But yeah, I've had, I think, 2 things accepted, and one is on its way to Cass, and the other one is on its way to me at home. So we will see. I think Si bought something via this as well, but I think he was off Jabba's Court rather than this page, didn't you, Si?
No, it was off the Deal or No Deal page. It was lovely blue snaggletooth. I already had one, but this really was a really nice looking one with it looked virtually flawless. That's now arrived with Mr. Sanderson.
But how do you find it, Si, as a selling format? What do you think about it?
I have no issue with it. People moaning about it gets the seller the most money. Well, that's the job of the seller, to get as much money as possible for their item. We're not charities, are we? We're collectors. That money goes back into collecting, or if you're unfortunate enough to have to sell up your collection for other purposes, then you obviously need the money for something else. So I've zero issue with it. Working quite well on Jabba's. I'm not on the IC. Yeah, no issues with it.
And what about you, Mark, as a trader? What are your thoughts on it?
It's an auction under any other name, really, isn't it? That's essentially what it is. You up and up and up and up the price until seller is happy with the price that you've mentioned. It's just another form of auction. I have no issue with it whatsoever. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, you should know how much you want for something, before you sell it. Well, that's okay with stuff that's run of the mill, where prices are relatively easy to gain, valuations are easy to gain. But with stuff that's appearing on that group in particular, it's just how do you value a prototype for, let's say, one of the things that I saw crop up, which I absolutely loved and very nearly pulled the trigger myself, was some prototype sculpts for the 1995 Judge Dredd film, the Stallone version.
Yeah.
And they had some sculpts for the figures for the line that was never made. And I just thought, what a cool thing. And they were going for really quite reasonable money, I thought. Somewhere around the sort of $150, $200 mark. And the Dredd characters were going for, I think they ended up going for about $500, I think. Which, when you think about it, if that was Star Wars, you'd be talking tens of thousands. And these were getting snapped up for, I thought, pretty decent, reasonable money. It's a nice way of getting into a particular area toy collecting, which a lot of people are priced out of. If it works, it works. And so far, I have to say that it does seem to be doing pretty well. The group does seem to be quite popular. So more power to them, I reckon.
There's 2. You're talking about someone mentioned auctions. That is the one thing I didn't quite understand on there. So some people put something up and then they'll put a comment underneath before people start putting their offers. I'll let this run. So it could be like Friday night. I'll let this run till Sunday afternoon. Well, that to me is an auction. He may as well just put a starting price on that and let the auction run like you do already have on so many of those sites, because you're just leaving it for 2 days for people to keep bidding it up rather than someone making an offer and you saying yes or no. I didn't understand the idea of that. You know, they may as well just go to the normal format.
For me, that would instantly put me off putting a bid in, because, well, you know, what's the point of that? You know, I'm here to buy, you're here to sell. If I mention a price to you that you are happy with, then you need to tell me as soon as possible. You know, I'll get back to you on Monday. Well, no, sorry, that's not good enough, really. As far as I'm concerned, it should be, you know, deal or no deal. Are you happy with the price, or are you? You know, this idea of letting it run on indefinitely, or, you know, for 2 or 3 days just doesn't float my boat.
No, I've seen it a few times pop up like that, and I did just think to myself, well, that's not the idea of this. Jez, have you had a little nose at this while you've been away?
I'm waiting for my. I'm waiting to get accepted. I'm sure it won't take long. What I did see when I was looking at the group was, let's have a little look, see if I've been accepted back yet. Oh, I need to answer a question. It's not necessarily a new one. I think you said it might have been a new group, because when I was looking earlier on, it said this group was created on 16th of January 2018, and it last changed its name to the current name on the 3rd of December 2018. So it was once called Epic Toy Battles and more, and so it changed its name to Deal or No Deal, Buy It Now, on 3rd of December 18. So it's not necessarily a new thing, but it's massively popular. 93 posts today, so 93 different things getting sold today. The membership is going up a lot, so yeah, just under 1,868, 163 of which in the last week. So it does seem to have had a massive sort of surge, even though it's been around for a little while.
Okay, so it's been around a long while. I think if you went back through the posts, you'll find that it's only been real heavily active the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
It's become a very, very popular place, and don't get me wrong, there's some big old collectors in there throwing up some nice pieces. I think Chris G on his own has been throwing up some fantastic micro collection prototype stuff or unproduced stuff well worth having a look at. And it doesn't all go really expensive, you know. I've seen things selling for $30-$40 on there. So just have a bid. You know, if you're way out, they'll just say no, won't they? Enjoy it. There was actually a cut card with a yellow sticker. The special yellow tapes sticker. Yeah, actually sold by Chris G of all of it, but still had the coin attached to the top of the card, but it had come off that offer. Someone had obviously cut the figure off the card, but he was still selling the top of the card with the thing. But I think actually that, in hindsight, I think that went, there you go, $90. So whatever that is, 75, 80 quid.
Yeah. We attempted as a souvenir of our best piece of investigative journalism so far.
Not getting into that. Every time we talk about something, buy something. I can turn around and already see that happening behind me. Yeah, interesting group. I would say go and check it out.
No, this deal is getting worse all the time.
Topic 3 and 4. It's ESB's 40th anniversary, so we thought we'd just have a little discussion about a couple of things. Now, this was a Craig suggestion about the Fett appeal. So, Craig, can you kind of word it?
Yeah, I mean, it was. We mentioned it on the last modern roundtable, I think, just talking about Slave One, and that everything that's sort of touched with Fett has this little bit of magic that comes with it, and it was just sort of musing over why that is. What magical ingredients did they just get right with that character from the get-go? Really, from the way he was teased to fans, the way the toy came out in advance of everything else. And I think it was a bit of a perfect storm, really. I think all these elements came together to create this sort of cult character.
You older boys, was he so popular back in your teens in the 80s?
I think it's really interesting because you're talking about two very different eras. So this is a character that was introduced to us with the broadest of brushstrokes. You know, he was in that lineup. He was a bit chopsy with Vader. You know, he stood up to him. That, you know, he was singled out. No disintegrations. Wow. You know, what badassery has he got up to in his time that, you know, Vader's giving him a bit of a dressing down. Whereas now it's like everybody wants to know everything. Everybody wants to see it on screen. Who's Snoke? Where's he from? Why has he got a smashed up face? Whereas back then, you just accepted that this was a character with a backstory, and we were kids, and we could fill in the gaps a little bit. You never saw his face. You could project a little of what you thought that character was onto him, and maybe that, I think, initially, certainly from the film perspective, was part of the appeal for a lot of people.
He's definitely a victim of his own success, I think, and it goes back to what you just said, Craig. That really, really cool character, man with no name sort of persona with a really cool set of armor and really cool helmet, really mint-looking, weird-looking spaceship, stood out. Had very, very little screen time in Empire Strikes Back. Didn't really play a major part in terms of his dialogue, but he just absolutely stood out by the fact that he didn't say a lot, and he did look so cool. And it's that thing, isn't it, that the thing that's in your imagination, where you dream up this kind of character's backstory and where's he from and what does he look like underneath his helmet and stuff like that. That's always cooler, far cooler in your head than anything that they can put on screen. It's like the shark in Jaws. The fin is far more frightening than the actual shark bit at the end of the film. It's like the alien in Alien. The thought of it being there in the shadows far more terrifying than what they can put on screen in my mind. So and what's happened is over time is people have investigated the character, researched it. Well, what's this? What's that? And they've kind of scratched away a lot of the mystery surrounding him. I always think that kind of dissipates a lot of the magic.
So you didn't like what they did with him in Attack of the Clones then, Mark?
I really didn't, mate. No, I didn't. And it's a bit like what they did with Vader in the prequels. You don't need to explain how Vader became Vader. You don't need to explain how the Force works. This is another conversation for another time, but it's this kind of, it's very much like, as Craig has said, with regards to the new films, everybody wants to know everything. What Snoke this, and what I love about the whole Snoke thing was it was all kind of played away in the end. It didn't form really any major part of the film in the end anyway. So people were led up alleyways and garden paths and all the rest of it, only to be led down a totally different path. So I always think it's sometimes better and cooler not to know something.
I remember Fett as a kid. I just think he's probably super popular because he has got that air of mystery that others have said. He did give Vader some lip, and also he's the only armored character, human armored character, that isn't a stormtrooper dressed all in white. Do you know what I mean? In Star Wars and Empire, he had some colour about him. He had a little bit. He had cool accessories all over him. He had rope flying out of his wrists and a rocket pack and a jet pack and blasters and everything. So he had it all going, didn't he? He was like the Clint Eastwood of Star Wars, and that just makes him instantly cool.
I think the toy had a lot to do with it as well. We talk about the on-screen character, but I think the fact that that toy came out in advance. He was only one of the two large-size action figures, the only one in this country. So we had him in our hands, and he was that Swiss Army knife character, wasn't he? Particularly the big one, and he was a one-man mini rig because he could fly, and that was ace.
I think as an action figure, it was really, really cool. I was a young lad. I wasn't born during Star Wars, and I was one when Empire came out, and my brother had all the figures. He was 8 years older than me, so I was handed down all of the Star Wars figures and the majority of the Empire figures. And I hadn't seen the films when I was really young, but there was something about that figure. It would always be central to any kind of game. There was a real coolness when you look through the figures. That and the Cantina aliens for me were just central to everything. So there is something about that figure.
I was listening to you guys. Craig finally nailed it. I was thinking, why hasn't anyone mentioned it? It's because he can fly. That, I think, from my point of view, as a kid, he wasn't the be all and end all. For me, it was still about Luke and Han and the heroes. But I think with the whole Boba Fett thing is you didn't need the blaster, you didn't need any of these other bits which a hero or a villain must have to get themselves out of danger, Boba Fett could always fly, and therefore we could always use our imagination. And that's probably the thing he has over every other character. He could just get out of dodge if it all went Pete Tong, you know. And yeah, but for me, I can't remember the craziness about it as a kid.
It's a shame he just goes out like a sucker, in the words of Sam Jackson. I think if he watched Jedi first and watched him pratfall into the Sarlacc pit, he might feel differently.
I think you could also be right with it being teased. You know, Star Wars was a massive hit, and you'd have these 20 figures come out. But what year did that offer come out? I take it it's about 79, was it?
I think so, yeah.
Well, there's a sequel coming, and you've already got this really cool figure which you know nothing about, literally nothing, unless you'd watched, especially in this country, unless you'd watched the holiday special. You've suddenly got a figure you know nothing about when you're creating your games. So he could have been anything. He is awesome. Let's be honest about it. He is awesome. Who's not a Fett lover here? Someone's going to try to sing. I bet it's Si.
He's not a focus character of mine, but I've always liked him as a piece of design. You know, he's great. And helmeted rocket men are a classic sci-fi trope, and have that type of character wandering around that kind of Art Deco scenery of Bespin. It's absolute classic retro sci-fi for me. I love it.
I always think when they were doing the pickups for the special editions, he lost a bit of coolness with that still photo that was around everywhere with the bloke with the big tash with his helmet off chatting to the dancers. Whenever I've seen that photo, I'm always like, maybe not so cool.
Yeah.
Also, when they changed the voice for the special editions, and they changed some of the lines that he said, they ruined it. The first voice that he had was just fantastic, absolutely spot on. And then they changed him to give him that sort of New Zealand sort of accent. It wasn't quite the same. Nothing against people from New Zealand, but it wasn't quite as cool.
Some of those odd interviews with Jeremy Bulloch do amuse me, where he's describing how inside the helmet he was like a cat, and he was scanning the room. It's like, yeah, he just kind of stood there, but you know, it worked.
We all love a bit of Fett, although none of us are going to focus on him.
It's an expensive hobby, that, isn't it?
It is an expensive hobby.
Yeah, we're not rock stars, mate.
We were saying that even with the modern stuff, you know, he sells out instantly. You just like, people just got to have him. Strange, it never seems to have eased off. It's been a consistent love for many, many, many years.
You are free to use any methods necessary, but I want them alive. No disintegrations.
As you wish.
So moving on to topic 4, but staying on the Empire Strikes Back. Now, dioramas have always been something that I would love to have a go at and do it, and especially from Empire Strikes Back. Now, although this chap used modern figures, Chris Derbyshire over on Echo-based Modern UK has made a Hoth coffee table. So he's got actually, let's go over to Jez to describe the actual table.
Yes, mate. So what we've got here is a lovely coffee table, which has got best way to describe this. Not only do you have the pleasure of looking down on a lovely Hoth diorama from above, but you can also do it from the side, very much like, say, if you're in a reptile house in a zoo. So what he's done is he's enhanced the obviously white scene of Hoth with some lighting as well around it. So, I mean, just to give people an idea, just to get some LEDs around the inside doesn't actually cost a lot, but the impact, the difference is massively significant. What have we got? Let's start off on the left-hand side. Such a simple idea, sort of which I wish I could have myself, but I'm just not that creative. This is the sort of thing Craig would probably come up with, or Mark. What he's got on the left-hand side is a scene of Luke in that scene with the Hoth Wampa, where he sort of wakes, he stirs from his unconscious state to find that he's suspended upside down, stuck by his feet, and a Hoth Wampa is just walking towards him. And oh, look at that from the attention to detail. If I pinch and zoom in, I can actually see he's got a little lightsaber stuck into the snow. And what's the snow and ice made of? It's actually made of, and this could be vintage itself, old, I would say, is the sort of TV packaging. It's like white polystyrene. It's just thrown in there, sort of, very much like boulders and rocks. So he's got a Luke upside down and a Hoth Wampa sort of very menacingly going towards him. So yeah, that was wonderful, and people can instantly tell what that is. You then move over to the right hand side, and you've got I would say, a crashed snow speeder, because it's a snow speeder which is very much dug into the snow. 2 X-wing pilots or snow speeder pilots just to the right of it, and looks there like a Han in Hoth costume. And you can also make out a couple of Imperial stormtroopers as well. So 2 very different scenes from The Empire Strikes Back, both really focus in a sort of homage to the Hoth. But it looks great. It's just such a conversation starter. I wouldn't want to put my coffee on it though. I'd be worried that I'll have a spillage. But yeah, really, really great idea. Great use of polystyrene or whatever it was. Oh, and you can get a really cold effect with the lighting, and that's a great thing with these LEDs. If you change the lighting and just put it onto blue, it really is a cold effect, which really, really emphasizes the whole Hoth planet. So yeah, loving that one.
Yeah, absolutely stunning. And like I said at the start, it's modern figures, but this could have easily been vintage, a vintage Wampa and a vintage Luke Hoth and blah blah blah. But brilliant effort. Now, I asked if any of you had seen any other ESB type dioramas around, so throw this out there because I don't know who's found what.
Me,
Craig, you can go. Yeah,
this is one of the best things I've seen for a long time, and it's something that Shane Ross shared on the ICC, and it just fulfills a beautiful dual purpose for display space, but in the form of a diorama. And it's a Bespin platform. So if you imagine a sort of flattened dumbbell shape, strip in the middle, 2 circles either end, upended and supported on 2 big brackets, and you've got the Millennium Falcon there on one side, Slave One Part 2 on the other side, and decked out and propped with the figures from those scenes. It's just beautifully done. It's very neat. It's not over fussy. It's on a nice grey wall, super classy, but it's lit along the edges very subtly, just the little landing lights on there. Could so easily have overdone it, but it's just spot on for me. I love it. I think it's great.
I agree. I think not having any other collectibles around it is just that, isn't it? It's what really sets it apart. It's I don't know what else he collects, but it looks incredible on that blank wall.
Yeah, top marks for using some discretion with what he's put with it.
Great shot. We will share these images on our social media. Anyone else find anything?
Yeah, just on Pinterest.
I'm not surprised you're a pinner.
I'm not. All the cool images seem to be there, and it's just a nightmare to view them properly. So I've not joined or anything. But this is hard to gauge the scale. I'm going to guess it's about, 2, maybe 3 feet across. It could easily be way bigger and just trick of perspective, but it does look like it's on top of the table. It's a giant glass or acrylic case, and there is a Hoth battle scene, which is the moment in Empire Strikes Back for me, with 3 beautifully weathered and illuminated AT-ATs approaching the rebel trenches with the iron cannons and the turrets and all the rest of it. And it's just the detail, even from sort of quite a wide angle picture, is just stunning. It gives you a real sense. You could be flying over the scene. You could be in a snow speeder approaching this, or you could almost be the models and the set that they used in the actual filming itself. It's beautiful, it's incredible, and yeah, I love it. There's so many talented people about, and the mind just boggles how you'd approach something like this.
It's lovely, isn't it? I think it owes a nod to the Airfix Snapfix scheme. It's got that kind of configuration, the 3 AT-ATs approaching the trenches, but it's a super upscaled, high-spec version of it.
Great find, that.
Just to pick up on something Jez said earlier about TV packaging, the 80s, and sort of so my Empire Strikes Back kind of height, playing with those toys kind of timed with the 80s when the Spivey household saw some major upgrading to the kitchen. And we did seem to have this sort of slew of microwaves and front-loading washing machines. And I remember taking those big lumps of polystyrene, and they were like frames, and the Falcon would sit right in the middle, and you would have an instant echo base. I had those sort of on my carpet for months and months as a permanent little setup. So, proto dioramas back when we were kids, that stuff was happening. And Hoth was easy to do because it was white and irregular, and I did have a crack at making a couple out of chicken wire and paper mache, and quite a forgiving kind of medium when you're making snow structures. So no excuses really for us all to have a crack.
Have you got photos of that?
Do you know, I'd love to have photos. I did two. I did one that was a sort of, I guess, a rough approximation of like sort of the entrance to Echo Base. So it had sort of an entranceway, and had a turret that was made out of a Dairy Time Star Wars yogurt that I scraped the print off with a Brillo pad. And it was important to me that it was a Star Wars yogurt pot, even though it took any evidence of that away. Speaks volumes, doesn't it? And then I punched a little hole and put the INT4 gun in the top. So it didn't rotate, but it wiggled it around. And then I think, in true Uze style, I kind of had an old calculator that I smashed up and put little panels on the inside. You could sort of sit it in the wire, with the chicken wire. Yeah, there was sadly no photos. It's going to be a big gap in the enhanced version. I'm into scouts, sort of show and tell, night. And people, this is cool.
I will also give a shout out to Jason Langendorfer, who actually created the Imperial Attack Base photography off the box art, which he set up as a diorama and made all the snow and everything for it, for a Kim Simmons competition recently, and he won. Yeah, I know he loves setting his figures up, and I'm sure he's got plenty of images because he's got photos of his little diorama setups when he was a child as well. So if I can find any of them of him, we'll put them on the visual here. But with so many creative minds here, I did say to you, what could you come up with for an ESB diorama? And let's go to who I think is the most creative, and that's Jez.
Dude, I thought I had nailed this, but I didn't quite read the show notes properly because I've got a lovely Return of the Jedi diorama. Damn it.
Return of the Jedi?
Yeah.
See, that one for 3 years for the anniversary, mate.
Yeah, all right then. Well,
no,
I was just supposed to tell you all. Well, Ewok Glider is a little mini rig type thing which is easily overlooked, and because people struggle to display it. Where I've loved displaying the Ewok Glider from the ceiling or from the top of a Detolf cabinet. So I think if you think about it, the Endor, took so much time in Jedi, and you can have speeder bikes, you can have scout walkers, you can have Ewok Glider, you can have the catapult, you can have the Endor Forest Ranger, you can have all these different things, and then not only the Ewoks but the Stormtroopers as well. You can have the Rebel Commandos. It's brilliant. You can do so much from an Endor theme, but you have to get the Ewok Glider in there just to mix it up and give it that aviation elevation.
It's a great idea, Jez. It's a great idea. Not ESB,
but wrong movie.
Do you know what? I could probably go to Simon now and get the same sort of answer as Si, being the second most creative.
I'm slightly disappointed with the second most creative epithet, to be honest with you. Slightly disappointed, but let's not dwell on that. I'd like to see a really good Dagobah one, complete with proper water, stinking swamp water, maybe even some baby newts in there, just to really bring it alive, literally. And I'd want a sort of pneumatic X-wing that could rise and lower out the swamp. Yeah, that would be cool.
Okay, so we've got an Endor one coming, and we've got a Dagobah project. Mark and Craig, then, not so creative, but let's see what your little minds came up with.
I would have loved to do an Echo Base interior done like, you do those worm farms where you see it from the top to the bottom, and you can see all the tunnels and all the interconnecting rooms and stuff. Do something like that, sort of etched into some polystyrene, so all the sort of command centre and the medical bay and all that is joined up and on different floors. I think that would be quite cool.
There was a fabulous one in I think it was Essen. Was it Essen they did that? It has the Hasbro stand. You can sort of get crouch down and look through, and it was just, I think I've got some photos.
An amazing idea, Mark. Yeah. So look forward to that one. So Craig,
we're vintage, aren't we? Because I think out of every figure ever produced, the Vader and Luke gantry fight figures are just incredible for a diorama ring. But vintage, I would say I'd like to see like the little Ugnaughts junk room just propped with bits of vintage broken stuff that you're never going to find a home for. Little IG-88 propped up in there. I think it could be very absorbing. You could really sort of sink into that, a lot of detail.
There's some great suggestions here. So I'm going to throw this out to the listeners, okay? We'll have a little poll on this, and we'll let you vote for which one you want to see made, and whichever one you want to see made, the person who come up with the idea will make it to celebrate ESB's 40th anniversary this year. So you could go with the Ugnaught Room with Craig, you could go with Echo Base with Mark, you can go with Cy Dagobah, and of course, to celebrate ESB's 40th, you could also go with Endor.
What about your suggestions, Stu? You're not getting out of this that like.
I would like some sort of asteroid with the space slug coming out with a falcon hanging somehow. It would obviously have to be the die-cast falcon.
Best idea. I think that's the best idea, Stu.
We'll get voting. I would love to see an Endor playset designed for ESB.
Well, I would love it. This would be brilliant if we could just employ all of our listeners to vote for the Dagobah scene, because for Simon to have stinking water in his house with a newt, I think he said a newt, that would be amazing.
I said baby newts, Jez. Try listening. You can't read clearly because it's going to be ESB. Now you can't even listen.
There's some great out there. If anyone has made ESB dioramas, please share them with us, and we can follow up on this.
What is thy bidding, my master?
There is a great disturbance in the Force.
I have felt it.
We have a new enemy. The young rebel who destroyed the Death Star. I have no doubt this boy is the offspring of Anakin Skywalker.
How is that possible?
Search your feelings, Lord Vader. You will know it to be true. He could destroy us.
He's just a boy. Obi-Wan can no longer help him.
The Force is strong with him. The son of Skywalker must not become a Jedi.
If he could be turned, he would become a powerful ally.
Yes, he would be a great asset. Can it be done?
He will join us or die, Master.
So topic 5, I'm always up by 5:15 each morning, and I woke up the other morning to, I think Craig had been up even earlier writing a blog post. I don't know when the bloke sleeps, or if he sleeps. Yeah, I think he's got a lot going on in his mind, because the blog post was it was a fun blog post, actually. So Craig, I'm going to let you explain it. It is over on generationskywalker.com, so please go and check out the blog post. Craig.
Okay, so the post went a bit like this. It was called Nothing Odd About These Balls. I may be completely on my own with this one, but does anyone else cringe when they see or hear the word oddball? The Cambridge English Dictionary describes it thus: oddball, noun, informal, a person whose behaviour is unusual and strange. Synonyms: eccentric, flake, weirdo, person, mainly US, sometimes offensive, informal, disapproving. Though it seems to me that the vintage Star Wars collecting community defines it as this: oddball, noun, informal, anything that isn't a toy or toy related. At best, it's a tag that has lazily ingrained itself over the last few years as people have completed their toy runs and turned their attentions to other things. At worst, it implies a hint of derision that such items are somehow less credible than the poster toy boys of the hobby. Clearly, I have way more views on this than is healthy. Allow me to labour some points. Firstly, the majority of items that seem to fall under this category couldn't be more ordinary. Badges, patches, jewellery, jigsaw puzzles, stationery, toothbrushes, craft sets, furniture, the list goes on and on. Taking the Star Wars Collector's Archive, it lists 61 categories, from apparel to watches and clocks. Let's take out toys, models, audio, video and film, books and comics, because they are their own thing. But that leaves 55 categories. The people who comment, "Love me a bit of oddball," under a Facebook post limelighting a salt and pepper shaker surely can't consider 91% of Star Wars merchandise to be oddball. Though perhaps I'm taking this at face value. Is it purely the addition of an Ewok on an Eraser that makes it oddball? I'd argue that the sheer amount of branded household and novelty items produced the world over since the Victorian age suggests not. So then, is it the context in which some of these pieces have been presented to the market? Frisbees given away with disinfectant, bit random. Stickers free with dog food, slightly incongruous. An action figure packed with some toothpaste? No, wait, that's a toy. That's not oddball. Which brings me to my next point. The Star Wars toy line is full of oddball items itself. A gun, that's a carry case, a space petrol pump for your vehicles. Everything about Cat 2, for Bosk's sake. And may I present to you Exhibits A and B. On the left, a blue pencil with the words, "May the Force be with you." On the right, an action figure where the designer, faced with the challenge of creating monk-style robes, went for a sleeveless, floor-length vinyl gilet with an Elvis collar. Not to mention the vintage era's most inaccurate representation of a lightsaber. Just pretend for one moment that you're seeing these things for the first time. No, indulge me. Imagine your grown-up 2020 vision is focusing on these afresh. Which would you say is more oddball? Star Wars has always produced a wonderful array of joyful, quirky merchandise across the board, and that is why we love it. And so many of these non-toy items exuberantly express the era and circumstances in which they were made, and highlight the beautiful cultural idiosyncrasies of different nations better than any swapped-out logo on a card back. So what's to blame for this imbalance, and what's to be done? I believe there's one major culprit for the widespread growth of the term. This guy. The C-3PO tape dispenser by Sigma. One of the oddest, balliest items in the world, let alone the world of Star Wars memorabilia. Could it be that items like this one, along with pieces like Helix's Death Star disco ball sharpener and Adam Joseph's Landspeeder comb keeper, which have been singled out and heralded as the wackier side of Star Wars collecting, have become iconically oddball, and the term has crept ever inwards to include everything else, simply due to the lack of a better term? I think that's the case. So what's a better word? It was something we struggled with when we came up with the Beyond the Toys Facebook group. Beyond the Toys works well as a 3-word descriptor, and also has a bit of Buzz Lightyear pomp that rightly elevates the incredible items showcased and debated there. But, just like Buzz, the term Beyond the Toys has never truly taken off, as it is neither noun nor adjective, and can sometimes feel a bit clunky in a sentence. Tell me more about your wonderful Beyond the Toys collection, Grant. Check out my other auctions of items that go beyond the toys. I love me some BTT. However, it's the best alternative to date, even though it feels wrong that we can only define these pieces in relation to the toys, not in their own right. The truth is, if it had really chimed with collectors, it would have been more widely adopted globally than it has been. A special mention also needs to go to Pete from the Vintage Rebellion, who at least tried to add another entry to the lexicon with his championing of the term gimcrack. Gimcrack, informal, adjective, showy but cheap or badly made, noun, a cheap and showy ornament, a knick-knack. Though really, all that did was help further define the dafter, bootleggier end of vintage collecting. I've also heard the word tchotchke used in a similar context, a Jewish-American term with a wonderful etymology and a variety of spellings, but still something used to describe cheap, poor-quality souvenirs and miscellanies. Our middle ground, not toys but still cool collectibles, remain poorly labelled, with a word that does them a disservice. It's semantics, I know, and yeah, I've overthought this. I've even tried to roll with it. Accept oddball as a good-natured reappropriation of an old word in a new context. Of course, I have absolutely no doubt that anyone who uses it doesn't do so without any sniffiness or, as the dictionary definition suggests, informal disapproving. I've even thought we could reframe it as an acronym. Objects deeply desired by appreciative lads and lasses. Anyone? Maybe not. Is there a better word we could all rally around? I've racked my brains, and the only thing worthy of public consumption I came up with is mania merch. Mania merch. Informal. Adjective. Merchandise hailing from the height of the popularity of a trend or entity. Noun. A branded collectible that captures the spirit of a piece of pop culture. It certainly brings to mind the classic 1977 footage of disco dancing fans decked out in Star Wars t-shirts, kids in pyjamas and the Don Post production line cranking out 3PO masks, a lovely showcase of that first rush of rich, vibrant memorabilia that blazed right through to 1985.
With the success of the film, the country goes Star Wars crazy. In the modern world, success can't be confined to one medium. It spills over into every area of our lives. Star Wars has spawned more Star wares than anyone can count. It has become an inescapable phenomenon. The music of Star Wars by John Williams is part of that phenomenon.
As the clip states, in the modern world, success can't be confined to one medium. It spills over into every area of our lives. So perhaps we don't need a collective noun at all. We could just drop the oddball and refer to each category on its own merits. Though we're collectors, right? Collective nouns are our jam. Maybe you yourself have the answer to all this. I'd love to hear your views, even if you couldn't care less. Let the Craig, you need to get out more. This lockdown is doing you no good whatsoever. Commence.
Yeah. So, what does everyone else think about Craig's comments? Are we in agreement? Do you like the term oddball?
I agree. I agree with what Craig has basically covered in his post. I think oddball. I mean, what is more oddball? A man collecting little toy action figures or collecting stationery? You know, to me, it's one of the same. It's a very strange word to sum up anything that isn't toys, and it is kind of almost elitist, I guess. You know, if you're not collecting toys, then anything else you're collecting, Star Wars vintage wise, is oddball. And for me, the worst word I've heard used is gimcrack. I think that's bloody awful. I really, really do. I hate it. We, like Craig said, you know, we tried with Beyond the Toys, and that sums up the Facebook page that we have, but it doesn't really roll off the tongue, so it hasn't really stuck in those terms. So yeah, no, I agree. It's a bit of a strange word to use, really.
Does anyone know where it came from? So I got back into collecting in about 2013, and it was already pretty ripe. Everyone knew that is what people called all those type of items. It must have been around for quite a while now. But it is a strange word. You're right. The dictionary meaning of oddball does not relate to what it's being used for here whatsoever, does it?
I don't think so.
At all. I think I first saw it used on Rebel Scum when I went to stage 3 of collecting, more or less the same sort of time, about 2011, 2012, and saw it being used on Rebel Scum. Just very strange.
I looked it up earlier on because, I love the blog. I kind of got to one point where Craig had said, but, you know, the majority of products, when you look at the number of different products there were, which are beyond the toys, and then you said, but there are so many more than just toys, but it was, you know, the mass production of toys, I guess, is why everyone is there, because for Christmas you wanted the toy, you wanted the figure, you didn't necessarily want the bookmark or what have you. So there are so many more toys and figures. But I agree exactly with your sentiment. Now, what was I looking up earlier on? I was looking up eclectic. I was just trying to come up with different ways, you know, because it is so diverse. It's you can put it to the cantina. Look at all the different creatures. Look at all the different aliens, and that is Star Wars collecting. So it doesn't just have to be figures and toys. I like the Beyond the Toys term. I don't think it's too much of a mouthful. I mean, for heaven's sake, we say a man, and that's not too much of a mouthful. So why can't we say Beyond the Toys? I think it's fine. I mean, Star Wars collecting, there's a lot more to it than just bits of plastic.
I've got a feeling Si's going to just be happy with the term oddball.
You've got a feeling, because I already posted up on the thread that I was happy with the term oddball, clever dick. I don't find it offensive, but then there's a lot of words that I don't find offensive that are offensive to people. So I don't collect the Beyond the Toys. I did for a while, but it's just a case of putting it in a box somewhere. You know, that form of collecting, and not seeing it again for years. So I got rid of it all and felt much better from a feng shui point of view in my very uncluttered office. So I don't find it offensive. I can understand why it is slightly derogatory. I think it's as you say. You know, how is a pencil odd? It's not odd, is it? It's a pencil. Is there a better term? Beyond the Toys is fine. I think that works well. It may not have garnered international approval. Who cares? But does it? And at the end of the day, does it really matter what you call anything that's not toys?
It really doesn't.
It doesn't, does it?
It really doesn't. But I was really interested to see what people did think, because I was suspecting that it was me just being a little bit oversensitive. I think what's been really interesting is the response. I mean, we did put the post up there on Beyond the Toys, which I absolutely admit is playing to the gallery. But even there, people's views differed, and I think what's apparent to me is that I think it is something that loses a bit of translation over the Atlantic. And I think a couple of points that people have made, that the term is a lot more affectionate than maybe I think it sort of comes across to me. I don't think you look at that dictionary definition, it's quite harsh, but I don't think people use it in that way. But yeah, I don't want to labour any of the points any more than I already have. But it's just an interesting debate. I mean, the way that we do start to, define our own common language as collectors. Simon mentioned in our little chatty boo off on WhatsApp that farm boy Luke. Where's that come from? It's sort of an adopted, common, shared descriptor of that figure. But it started somewhere, and I find all that really interesting.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it is a great topic. And sadly, I think for your sake, I think oddball's probably here to stay across the sea. I think that's probably what they see it as. I like the Beyond the Toys. You're right. I don't think it rolls off the tongue when you're in mid-conversation. I know Jester said, we say things like a man, but to be fair, I don't bring that up in conversation much either. To be fair, it's just vintage stationery, Star Wars vintage food products. I think things like that is the best way of going about it, and it all comes under the Beyond the Toys umbrella. But yeah, be interested to see what people's... The what?
Variety.
Yeah, Beyond the Toys didn't roll off the tongue. Let's go around going the variety of the Force.
I know. I've been trying to come up with something, but Beyond the Toys works. It is Beyond the Toys.
It does work. It does work.
It doesn't give it... None of these comments, none of these terms are like Star Wars specific, are they? Whereas if you're going to have something which is Beyond the Toys, 4 syllables or what have you, let's try and come up with something which is definitely Star Wars specific. And you could throw Force in there as a cheeky one. That's absolutely fine.
Okay, so we will throw it out to listeners. If anyone's got any good suggestions, we want to hear them. And also, if anyone can decipher Jez's last sentence, please let me know.
I am quite tired.
It's going on about something to do with the Force. But hey, Craig, anything you wanted to add?
No, it's just sometimes you have to scratch these itches, don't you, and get this stuff out there, and you can move on with your life.
Very, very much. Yeah, I can't wait for your next sleep-deprived rambling.
Luke's X-Wing slipped into Cloud City. Led by the Force, he found himself face to face with his enemy, Darth Vader. Their lightsabers sprang to life. Luke attacked boldly, forcing the Dark Lord to retreat.
You have learned much, young Skywalker, but you are not a Jedi yet.
Darth Vader slashed the weapon out of Luke's hand and backed him onto a bridge.
Don't make me destroy you. Your future lies with me, for I am your father.
Luke was stunned.
No! It's not true! I'll never join you!
With that, Luke stepped from the bridge and plunged helplessly toward the emptiness below.
just before we close out, I did put on a couple of groups, just asking people what their top 5 ESB toys were. So we're talking the ships, the creatures, the figures, the 12-inch figures. And I drew up the top 10 list. Just going to have a little game here. So Mark and Jez, you two can go together. And Si and Craig, you two can go together. Okay, that's my screen split in half. You have 5 guesses each as a team. Okay, taking turns to see who can get what's on the list of 10. So Mark and Jez, what do you think's on this list? If you get a top 5, I'll give you 3 points. If you get a bottom 5, you get 1 point.
It's got to be the Turret Probot, surely.
Right, so that is their first answer. Well, it was named because I had 36 answers, but it didn't make the top 10.
Oh, fuck.
So, yeah, a miss from them. Si and Craig, feel free to confer.
Are we conferring?
Mark just disregarded his stupid teammate.
Yeah. I don't blame him, but Craig surely is shooing with the AT-AT.
That definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, AT-AT was number 1 by quite a heavy margin. Mark and Jez.
Go on, Jez, you answer, mate.
Don't feel
Thank
like
you
that.
very much, Mark. Anything to do with Empire Strikes Back, not a Sarlacc pit. Right, okay. So we said the obvious one, which was AT-AT. Maybe Snowspeeder?
Snowspeeder was number 4, Jez. Yes, there you go.
Okay.
Now you're getting the idea. I was worried you were going for that.
I had the idea at the beginning. Yes, anyway. Okay, we'll move on.
Craig and Si?
Slave 1, mate.
Slave 1, yeah.
Yeah, that's 8th. So a point there.
What?
Jez and Mark. 8th, yes.
I've got a feeling it could be the Twin Pod, you know. What do you reckon, Jez?
Oh, yeah. Because people...
It's one of my favourites anyway. So I'm going to say Twin Pod.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the people who would be on the groups would say something like a Twin Pod. So yes, let's go for that.
Twin Pod.
Okay. Out of a lot of people who did it, it was only in one person's list, so it doesn't feature in the top 10.
They're all wrong, aren't they?
Yeah,
Craig and Si?
every one of them.
Dagobah?
Yeah, just vehicles and playsets, nothing else.
No, toys, figures. Anything toys.
Can we count Boba Fett as Empire when he
anything that was in Empire? Yeah,
in Empire. Fett. Let's have Fett, mate. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, Fett was 3rd.
No Fett tax
Right,
on.
okay.
Jez has jumped in to stop Mark suggesting anything, by the sounds of it.
So Mark, we're losing
What about
3
Hoth
points to
Stormtrooper?
1.
Hoth.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, Hoth Stormtrooper is cool as you like, and it's probably in there. But what about Yoda as well?
Yeah.
He didn't sound confident.
Okay, I won't hear the end of it. No, he didn't sound confident at all. What we'll do is, in that case...
So what are you gone with?
Whatever Mark wants. It's nearly midnight. And
Okay.
I've got a busy shift.
Off Stormtrooper, that's right. It was 6th, Mark. Well done. 1 point.
Yes.
Simon and Craig.
Okay, I quite liked Yoda.
Do you quite like Yoda as an answer? Is that what you're going with?
No, I'm waiting for Craig. Craig, you're muted, mate. Come on.
Sorry, if I know those, if I know those forum boys, I'd say Bespin Leia.
Okay, go with it.
You're going with Bespin Leia. That isn't in there. She did get some votes, but it's not in there. So Mark and Jez still a chance.
What about Imperial Attack Base, mate?
Yeah.
So Yoda then. Yoda.
What one are you going with?
Yeah, go on, Yoda.
We're going for Yoda.
I was really hoping you wouldn't say it. It was 2nd. Simon and Mark, what have you got? I'm going to be honest with you. The scores are completely level, but there's still 4 answers on there. If you hit one of them, you win. If not, it's a draw and everyone's happy.
Tauntaun. I quite like the Tauntaun.
The Tauntaun was 10th. So well done, boys. You could have also had Han Hoth, Luke Bespin, and the Wampa.
What was number 5, mate? What got
number 5 was the Wampa.
See, it was between the Wampa and see, disappointing myself.
What I will say is, if we ever do a quiz, we always put Jez and Mark together because that was brilliant.
Where did Rebel Transport come? Did anybody say
got one
Rebel
vote,
Transport?
Jez? Yeah, it was on one
Who
list.
was that? Who said that? Carl Dennis?
Sadak.
Probably. Well, there you go. Bit of fun to finish off on this month. Jez has never been very good at quizzes and has continued that in a different format.
That's not true. Right. Film quizzes. Star Wars, the actual Star Wars films I will pan everyone.
Right. Jez has just done
Okay.
that. We will be playing live on a standalone show, Star Wars Trivial Pursuit. And Jez will pan everybody. We heard it here. Okay?
You got confused between Empire and Jedi, mate. Come on.
What came out in 1980? Was it Return of the Jedi?
40th anniversary of Jedi.
ESB, what does that stand for? That must mean Return of the Jedi. Well, I won't tolerate bullying on this podcast, Simon. So just leave him alone. And let's finish it there. So goodbye this month from Mark.
See you guys.
Goodbye from Craig.
Goodbye. I enjoyed that a lot. Thank you.
Goodbye from Si.
I indeed did that laugh. Thank you very much.
And it is goodbye from Jez.
Goodbye, everyone. There's no need. No need whatsoever.
And it is good night from me, and we are Generation Skywalker.